Welcome to Enjoy the Journey podcast, where we interview expert entrepreneurs and thought leaders to help guide you in pursuit of financial freedom. Presented to you by Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and Sam Panetta, the Money Man, where we help service-based business owners remove cash flow bottlenecks, maximize their profits, and turn business profits into personal wealth. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another expert masterclass for the Enjoy the Journey podcast. Now, I'm very happy to have another BXer here today, Mark Grant from Costless Payment Solutions. Mark was introduced to me by Matt and Loz in the BX network, and I was really intrigued by Mark's business because I think it's a really phenomenal solution for the small to medium business space. So I wanted to get an opportunity to pick his brain, share some value, and I think this is going to be something that's going to give you guys some really actionable insights to help you make sure that you are controlling those super important margins in your business as we're going through, I guess, this profit reduction, but also cost increase that's impacting a lot of small businesses. So, Mark, thanks for joining us, mate. How's things?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Mate, so give us a little bit of a backstory. What's your story, mate?
Yeah, sure, Jackson. Look, I hope listeners won't, cease listening when they mention this, but I've got over 25 years banking experience. So I used to work in, business banking for Westpac up here in Queensland. So yeah, 25 years. The common question people ask me, why did you leave after 25 years? Well, that's a good question. Why I left after 25 years is because I became disenchanted with the banking model, that continual charging of businesses, clubs and associations of fees and charges. I just couldn't do it anymore. So what actually happened, I came to a junction in the road where I could continue to keep doing something that didn't sit well with me, personally, as a person myself and my conscience, or continue to keep, look for different options. So left after 25 years, thought I'd have a 6-month hiatus in just trying to detoxify or detox, or whatever you'd like to call it.
Detox from the bank.
Yeah. And the 6 months turned into just shy of 3 years because I couldn't get work. And there's no such thing as age discrimination in our country at all.
No, I've never heard of that before.
So what actually happened is came across a sort of a lightning bolt moment back in September 2017 when the federal government brought in the surcharge laws into our country, which still to this day are a little bit misunderstood. So I'm hoping that today I can provide a little bit of clarity around them, as to what they are. And from there, sort of costless payment solutions have sort of evolved.
Fantastic. Look, I come from the banks as well. Definitely not 25 years, as you can see from the baby face, but enough time to realise that a very similar thing, Mark. That unfortunately, banks are some of the biggest businesses in the country for a reason, because they're profiteering off small businesses and institutions that can least afford it. So, talk to us about how Costless Payment Solutions was born and what your mission was, Mark.
Yeah, sort of my mission was, Jackson, is sort of I still burns within me even now that previous 25 years I had in my life, and I'm certainly not in the case of browbeating banks because they're good to me as an employee for that length of time. But what was important to me is that I was able to provide a solution to small, medium, large enterprises here in Australia, that I was able to provide them a one-stop shop for payment solutions that avoided the dreaded bank fee. So there's nothing worse than a small, medium-sized business owner getting their bank statement monthly and looking at it and thinking, OMG, is that what the banks are charging me for those solutions? So I've sort of continued my journey along with that sort of theme. And what's sort of burning also deep within me is that if I can sort of address some of that angst with bank fees, what it's going to do is it's also going to improve the quality of life here in Australia. We know what the cost of living pressures are at the moment.
Sure.
Probably no more time than during COVID to sort of bring those to light. So what I do is sit down and analyse that. And when I mention the word surcharge, if I was to go into the street now and mention surcharge to 10 people, I'd probably have 10 people possibly look to attack me in some shape or form because surcharge seems to be a word that's sort of misconstrued a little. It's certainly misunderstood by a lot of businesses out there onto what it means, what they have to do to be compliant within the law. But that's sort of where I come in because that's, I've had to become licensed
Sure.
as the banks are to provide what I do, and obviously have to become updated with the law and how people can actually, operate within it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this surcharge. What exactly is it, Mark?
Yeah, it's so I might just answer it this way, Jackson. Once again, I'm going to use no disrespect to Westpac at all, but if a client walked into a Westpac branch today, and let's go forward 12 months in time, they could have paid to Westpac, I'm just talking about an average, 15 grand in bank fees for 12 months.
Wow.
It's quite,
It's a lot of money.
sometimes even more. So let's just park that for a moment. 15 grand, you're thinking you've got to find in your profit somehow to pay that back. You're brand new to business and you're thinking, well, that's going to be a struggle. So what surcharge is and what the law states, back in 2000, as I said, September 2017, federal government brought in a law, and the law states that if a person is paying for a good or service by card in person and or online, the business providing that good or service can redirect back to the client the cost of acceptance of that card. That's
Makes
sort of
sense.
in short what it details.
Okay.
In no shape or form is that business club or association allowed to profit from that transaction.
Makes sense.
So when you're talking about a surcharge, I'm going to just use an analogy of a $5 coffee. You've just popped into Gloria Jean's in Manly as an example to buy a $5 coffee. They have my FPOS terminal, as they don't, but let's say they did. My terminal would automatically charge you $5.10. $5 would go to the business owner, of course. The 10 cents would come to me, and I'd pay the bank fees, transaction fees, and everything else out of that 10 cents. So with my three products that I provide, so the FPOS, the direct debiting, and the zero payment solution, different surcharges apply for the three products. But that's just a fairly clear, concise definition of it.
Makes sense. So how many businesses, in your experience, Mark, have their head around this stuff and are properly administering these surcharges?
I would have to say, if I was to say nationally, which I deal with businesses nationally here in Australia, no disrespect to business owners, I'd have to say less than 5%.
And that's the scary part, right? Like, there's no rule book on how to be a small business owner. And I remember,
No, exactly right.
I remember my first business, which was an online clothing business that I started. And I remember that I had to go and get a merchant facility. And the first thing you think about is I'm going to go into my local bank. And I nearly fell over when I realized the cost associated with getting the terminal, paying all of the ongoing fees, plus the slice of the income that was coming in, all of these different things that they add up. And so many businesses struggle with it. And unless you're a sizable operation, it's a pretty significant slice of your takings that are just going straight into the bank's pocket.
Yeah, absolutely, Jackson. You make a good point there, and the point you make is going to your bank. Now that's been the case ever since the dawn of time, if we can use that analogy. So with the deregulation of financial services in our country, it's now enabled myself as an example, and there are people like me in Australia, I'm not the only one, that are now able to provide the same solutions that the banks do and obviously provide that sort of cost saving back. So when someone comes to me, they're not only what they're getting is they're sort of getting my sort of, my experience. So what I can do is I've still got my experience, but also what I do provide is I have a lot of people new to business, as an example, that are referred to me by clients. If I can't give that client a value add, if I can't improve in some way their current position, I won't. And I'll bravely say, hey, Jackson, as an example, you're better off staying at Westpac.
Yeah.
I can't save you money on what you've got.
And I think that's the big difference, right? Like I don't think, once again, we don't mean to pick on the banks, do we, Mark? Although we do seem to have a little bit of a grudge against them after all of these years. But even business banking's changed over the years. Like I'm sure back when you were at the bank and you were working in business banking, there was really tight-knit relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's shifted. It's people like yourself that have moved out into private enterprise, and that experience has shifted as well. Like now I don't even know who my business banker is. I've never even spoken to the person.
Yeah, and that is something that I'm starting to play on, because when a client comes to me, they're not a client for a service. They're a client for life with me. So I do a lot of what the banks don't do. So what I mean by that is that I provide sort of the after sales service. So I'll come to you 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the track. How's the FPOS terminal working for you? Oh, and by the way, Jackson, happy birthday for tomorrow. So I provide those little personal touches that the banks, if you look at the monologues from the Royal Commission, the banks have actually lost that touch.
Yeah.
And, it's like when I was in the banking game, if I didn't have you and your business banking with me, I took it that personally. I felt ashamed in getting my salary every fortnight.
And the dynamics changed.
It has, and continues to.
And it definitely does, particularly in this post-coronavirus world. So let's talk about the landscape at the moment. So what would you say are the primary reasons that most small businesses are seeking out your services, Mark? What are they disenchanted with? What are the pain points or frustrations?
Yeah, look, what they're experiencing is a lot of them are experiencing sort of that downward pressure on their profits, increasing expenses, and they're reaching that sort of crossroads in their business, not knowing what to do. They think, naturally what I'll do is I'll just increase my cost of goods sold. So you and I would both know that that's somewhat fraught with danger. In most cases, what you'll do is you'll just set up a direct line back to your competitor and just start directing them more business than what they can know what to do with. So that's sort of one. The other is, there's still a lot of bad sentiment out there with the Banking Royal Commission. When a couple of words that came out of the commission were untrustworthy, no service. Sorry, excuse me. So they're things I take to heart in what I do. But also what's important is I have a lot of people that are coming to me that are providing their own private surcharge. So I'll just give you a little bit of an example on a private surcharge.
Yeah, please.
So I came across, the business will remain unnamed. A business up in Brisbane had a FPOS terminal with Westpac. Westpac were charging 60 cents for FPOS transactions. With MasterCard and Visa, they were charging 2% to the business, and Amex, they were charging 3%. So, as I said earlier, a lot of the education around what a business can do with surcharge and how they can incorporate it and how they can charge it is confusing.
Yeah.
People in business are just so focused on so many different things. But this particular business, with those examples I just made, I came across them because I went in to buy one of their goods and they're going to charge me 3% surcharge. So I just have a excuse me.
No, you're right, mate. No problem.
Yeah. So they're going to charge. So I finished up paying cash. So I had cash in my wallet. So go forward 2 weeks, I finished up getting an appointment with the business owner. So in sitting down with this business owner, as I do with a lot of them, he naturally thought, and you can charge your own private surcharge. There's no reason why you can't. However, you've just got to be very, very careful on what rate you charge, because the law states you can pass on to your consumer the lowest cost denominator. So in that example, he was trying to pass on to me and every other consumer paying by card, even with FPOS, 3%. So as the law states, he could effectively only pass on 60 cents per transaction. So in sitting down with him, he started to realise that, if I pass on 60 cents to every consumer, Westpac's still going to charge me 2% for my MasterCard and Visa and 3% for my... I said, yes. So what we did is he now uses My Terminal, because My Terminal has the ability to pass on an integrated surcharge, which is evident by the card type being used. So it will differentiate what card type and will charge the specific surcharge for that card.
Wow. So what was the difference in terms of the costs for him once you crunched the numbers on that, Mark?
Once I crunched the numbers, I saved him over $80,000 a year.
Wow. So I'm sure you're on his Christmas card list.
Hopefully.
I love that.
Yeah, but I say that with fairly large terms in mind, but with the listeners, I'm here to take calls from anyone, emails from anyone that needs clarity around that fact. Because in that example, if he was, and I know for a fact on the Gold Coast at present, there are investigators from the ACCC going through and looking at this fact.
Yeah.
So if by chance you're found to be not compliant with the law,
sure,
you face up to a fine of $126,000.
Wow. Have you seen any horror stories of businesses who've been caught up in these issues yet, Mark?
Not so much, Jackson, not yet, but I've come across a lot of businesses like that one I just mentioned, where unfortunately, if the investigators were to call on that business I just mentioned and the gentleman said, well, I had no idea, the no idea counts for
Doesn't count. No.
For nothing, doesn't cut it. So he'd still be fined up to $126,000.
Wow, it's very scary. And to think after coronavirus, with now having the first recession announced in almost 30 years, the last thing you want to do is get hit with a six-figure fine. That's going to send most businesses broke.
Absolutely. Send your profit right through the floor.
So let's talk about the forward-facing, the opportunity. So I guess the great thing about small business, and I guess small businesses come a really long way over the course of even the last decade in terms of technology solutions and digital solutions that empower them to do more of what they do best. So how does a solution like yours help enable businesses to be more efficient, to have to worry so much about the constant grind of chasing up invoices and your typical kind of accounts receivable process that many businesses have been doing for hundreds of years? Yeah.
Look, excellent question, Jackson. Look, what I'll do is I'm going to answer that in three parts. I'm going to walk through with my three products. So firstly, with the FPOS terminal, I don't know if the listeners or yourself remember back in November last year, Woolworths had an outage of their terminals. It was on a Thursday afternoon, and a lot of people get paid on a Thursday, so it's natural that Woolworths supermarkets will be busy on a Thursday afternoon.
Sure.
So what actually happened, Woolworths terminals crashed. And the reason their FPOS terminals crashed is because Woolworths exclusively used Telstra Signal. Telstra Signal went down, Woolies, people couldn't pay for their groceries, so there's a dilemma. What was important to me in ensuring, once the terminal was released, that it had the ability of ensuring full function. So in other words, if this particular terminal I issue was affected by, Telstra Signal went down, the terminal has a roaming SIM card built into it. So that effectively means that it will search up in the atmosphere like our phones do for the strongest signal to continue to be able to function.
Fantastic.
So I've got businesses in Western Queensland using my terminal now and have been for about the last 18 months, and they have not yet had an outage.
Fantastic.
So that's one. The second one is my direct debiting solution. So what we provide there to enable a business to continually address cash flow issues each morning, Monday to Friday, by 8 o'clock, and we're going to take the different time zones around our country out of the equation. Provide an email. That email comes in and details individually who's actually paid you last night, and also a separate email will be sent to you itemising who hasn't paid you. So it gives you that functionality there. Also, what it also does is, in developing this, something that I brought from my Westpac days, was there was always an issue of having multiple users using the solution at one time. My solution does provide that access. So a lot of the people, as an example, I had a gentleman living in Melbourne who was on the coast here doing some presenting. He had his wife, PA, out the front, no disrespect to wife PAs. He was speaking, his wife was out the front using this solution to sign up people to his programs. And also he had his daughter back in Melbourne at the same time, signing up clients for him at the same time using the same solution.
Sure.
So the solution is able to be used, the direct debiting one that is, on iPads, laptops, and tablets. Yeah. Lastly, the zero payment solution. Sorry, excuse me.
You're right, mate.
With that, with zero being heavily used, a lot of people were not providing any sort of payment solution, payment option on their invoice when they issued it out of zero. So to enable, what I've now done is I provide a Pay Now tab on that invoice on the top left-hand corner. So when the recipient of that invoice receives it, he or she can click on the Pay Now tab. They've then got the ability to pay from their credit card, their bank account, their debit card, or even self their own private BPay bill payment. This is sort of one business I'm thinking of predominantly is in the pest control space.
Sure.
And from them now using this solution, they've increased their cash flow by over 80% a month.
Wow, that's a game changer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really improved their business position.
So what are most, prior to your clients implementing your solution, Mark, what are most SMEs doing in this space?
Most just with the major four banks. So they're being told by their accountant, they're being told by their business coach. Obviously these two, different professionals have got relationships with banks, and I'm never going to attack that. That's not where I am. But really, it's a point of now, just like in the home loan space, if you go and see a mortgage broker and the mortgage broker tells you to go to Westpac for your home loan, well, before you sign the documents, I would be suggesting that borrower asks, why is Westpac better than the Commonwealth Bank, better than NAB, better than ANZ, better than Suncorp, and the list goes on.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So it's no different in what I do in the payment solution space either.
Beautiful. Okay. So I guess one of the common objections I think many business owners will have is, Mark, I'm already set up with an existing solution. I've been doing this for donkey's years. It's probably going to be impossible, if not taking me a huge amount of time to try and make this transition. So what's the process, assuming that somebody wanted to consider shifting their solution to something like yours? What's normally involved?
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. As I said from my previous background, is that when you went to a bank to get as an example, a loan for a home, they'd give you an application that looked like that thick. Business people I've known, even in my banking day, don't have time to fill out a document like that, let alone, So what I've done is I've streamlined that whole process. So how have I streamlined it? I provide. So, for instance, as an example, let's use you as the example, Jackson. You've said to me, "Hey, Mark, love the zero payment solution that you provide. I'd really like to take that to my business." So what I would do is I'd email you a 2-page PDF document. That PDF document lists the information I require to complete that application on your behalf. I complete it on your behalf, email it to you for signing via DocuSign. Comes back to me as long as I've got everything I need for the application, and then I normally would have an approval inside 5 business days. On the 6th business day, we'd be arranging a Zoom meeting. where we would run through, that's if you're not up here on the Gold Coast,
Sure.
we'd run through a Zoom meeting with where I'd be onboarding you and teaching you how to use that solution. With, and once again, comparing myself to the Goliath, the banks, it's sometimes taking up to a month from an application for an FPOS terminal. Businesses don't have that length of time to wait.
No, it's a very long and arduous process.
Yeah.
So where's the opportunity? And I guess for business owners, what should they be looking out for as a trigger for them to consider maybe looking at a different solution like yours, Mark?
Yeah. Thanks, Jackson. Two-part answer. I'm not going to try and change your mind. That's not who I am. I'm here to provide a solution which can really add value to your business and improve your profit. If you're someone that wants to stay with your bank, I would be going back to your bank and stating this to them. I would say, hey, Mr. Bank Manager, I've been with you at Westpac for 4 years. I've got my home loan, my investment loan with you, run my business through you. What can you do to keep me as a customer for my FPOS facility? What can you do to keep me for my direct debiting solution? So put the pressure back on the banks to come to you on why they need you more than you need them.
Makes perfect sense. Look, there's very few businesses that ever negotiate. And I think if you don't ask, you don't get, right?
No, exactly right. Exactly right.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the future. I think obviously we've got tough times now. I'm hoping that business is obviously going to get back on the track in the not too distant future, and we're going to continue to have a lot of growth. So in terms of these types of solutions, Mark, what's the future look like for you? What is the, I guess, additional functionality or features that you're looking to bring out that could benefit other small to medium businesses in the future?
Yeah, good question again. Thanks, Jackson. Cryptocurrency has been bandied around a little, possibly looking at some sort of integration into the FPOS solution for cryptocurrency. That's sort of on the drawing board at this stage. Something else that's on the drawing board at this stage is the ability to have a FPOS terminal on one of these things on a phone.
Fantastic.
So at the moment, that's in sort of development phase at the moment. So, I've actually got the development on my phone at the moment. So,
beautiful. Great.
But, that's sort of something that I'm working on fairly heavily at the moment to try and get that in the marketplace. Mainly because, as you would know, we both, for the want of a better word, we basically sleep with these things next to us.
100%, yeah.
So wherever we go, that's there. So if you're in the consulting space, as an example, you've always got your phone. Bang, there's a way of accepting a payment face-to-face.
Beautiful.
From an online payment gateway solution, I do provide those, but there's a little bit of a, a paper war that a client has to go through there before we can even look at an application. So I'm trying to streamline that process. But as far as the other three products go, the application process is pretty much as I explained.
Beautiful, mate.
Yeah.
That sounds great. And look, I guess this is the great thing about being a small business, working with a small business as well, right? At the end of the day, as small business owners, we're constantly innovating and iterating. Whereas I think a lot of the big banks, they're pretty stale, and I haven't seen a whole lot of new functionality coming in since CBA brought in that monstrosity of an FPOS machine.
Albert,
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So I thought things were supposed to be getting smaller, not bigger. Fantastic, Mark. Well, if you had to give some advice to our listeners who are small business owners, what would be your kind of top 3 tips to help them navigate the times and make the most of their small business opportunity?
Yeah, excellent. I'd certainly, as I said earlier, suggest that if you haven't had, I would say, contact with your bank in the last 12 months, I would like to think that the banks are proactive in coming to you, but they're not. So I would really recommend that you go to them. Now, I don't care if you don't have loans, all you've got is an FPOS facility. You're really, in essence, you're a client of theirs, and they should really be providing some, annual review on your facility. And if you've been with them for some time and you haven't had that contact, please initialise it. if so that would be one. I'd also be looking at your bank statements. And on your bank statements, I'd be looking for things such as direct debit. So let me say 3 years ago, you saw this piece of software that you thought, wow, that's just the ant's pants. I've got to have that now. Maybe that software no longer suits your needs, but you continually keep paying for it. So if you're paying, you're paying $60 a month for this piece of software, there's $720 a year that could be going back into your pocket towards, electricity bills, rates bill,
yep.
Children's education, and so forth, maybe a holiday. Thirdly, I would say never sit in your business and think there is no way out. So I'm hoping that I've given you something to consider this afternoon. So I've provided you, letting you know, and don't feel bad about this, because probably 90% of the people I talk to say, Mark, where have you been hiding? So they can't believe a solutions like I provide do exist. And I don't care how small you are or how large you are, I'm equipped to handle you, equipped to provide a cost-saving solution to you, and also to grant you more access to more of your money.
That's fantastic, mate. Look, I think honestly, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Before we were introduced, I had absolutely no idea that there was anything outside of the big banks and some of the new kind of online players that are kind of shooting the lights out and capturing market share and charging a hefty sum for the privilege. So it's awesome to see that there's someone like yourself in this space that's helping shake things up and keep everyone honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, guys, if you want to get in touch with Mark, Mark, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Look, Jackson, I'm terribly old-fashioned in that. So what's important to me is what's easier for the listeners. So you either could contact me on my mobile, which is 0419 762 478, or my email is mark.grant@costlesspaymentsolutions.com.
Fantastic, mate. I'll include all those details in the description. And guys, if you've got value from our conversation with Mark today, if you feel like it's a good opportunity for you to review your current costs in terms of your merchant and payment processing facilities, make sure that you reach out to Mark, have a bit of a conversation. And once again, these are the little things that kind of fly under the radar, the invisible cash flow bottlenecks that most of us as business owners don't pay any attention to. That if you solve them, it can be a whole heap of money. In many cases, can be thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars back in your pocket. So, Mark, thanks again, mate. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and looking forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, no, my pleasure to help. Thank you for the opportunity, Jackson.
Thanks, mate.